So is it worth it to work overtime when we're talking about taxes? I've heard a lot of misconceptions about how overtime affects your taxes, such as there's a buffer zone where you can work a certain amount of overtime, but if you work any more than that, once you're in that buffer zone, all that overtime will just cancel itself out. I'm Tim Wolf, and if you're new here, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button. I needed to make this video because I've seen a lot of videos out there and articles that are just straight up wrong, giving you bad information about how overtime and making extra money affects your taxes. I think we have these misconceptions because the tax laws are very confusing. But if you stick around and watch till the end of the video, I promise you'll have a much better grasp on how taxes work than the average person. And if you guys learn anything at all from this video or get value, please hit the like button. It would be much appreciated. Right before filming this video, I just watched a YouTube video of someone talking about don't work overtime because it's not worth it. Instead, work 2 jobs so you'll have to pay less taxes. This argument does not make any sense at all. So if you work one job and you make $100,000 that year from working that job, or if you work 10 different jobs and you make 10 grand at each job, totaling $100,000, both those people will pay the exact same amount in taxes because they both made $100,000. The IRS only looks at one number, that's your total income that you made. There's no special overtime tax. Whether you obtain that income from working your regular job, working 6 different jobs, or working a ton of overtime, it all gets counted as income. So for example, if you have one person whose base salary is $50,000 a year, and they work a little bit of extra overtime, and they end up with $60,000, so they made an extra 10 grand in overtime that year. Compare that to a person who has a base salary of $60,000 and they don't work any overtime. At the end of the year, they both made $60,000, but one worked overtime and one didn't. Which one pays more taxes? They both pay the same amount of taxes because they both made $60,000. It doesn't matter how they got there. If we're talking about overtime being worth it in the sense of just money, so I'm not talking about how it affects your family or anything like that. Obviously, yes, the more money you make, the more you will pay in taxes because you're bringing home more money. But if we're gonna say that it's not worth it to work extra overtime to make more money, then why would we ever want to get a raise? Because that's also gonna cause us to make more money and pay more taxes. Or better yet, why do you even have a job? Because if you made $0 per year, you wouldn't pay anything in taxes. It's not like you get taxed at 15% for your regular pay and then all of a sudden when you work overtime, you get taxed at 100%. It doesn't work like that. You're still gonna take home the majority of every dollar that you make, whether it's overtime money or regular money. So if you work and you get an extra $1 of overtime, you're probably still gonna take about 76 cents of that dollar home with you after taxes. So let me put this in an easier example for you. So let's say you make $30 an hour. This is gonna put you in the 22% tax bracket. So if that $30 an hour gets taxed at 22%, your take-home pay is gonna be $23.40 an hour. And if your overtime rate is time and a half, you'll get paid $45 an hour. You're making more money, so you're gonna pay a little bit more in taxes. It's gonna put you in about the 24% tax bracket, meaning per hour, your take-home pay is gonna be $34.20 for overtime. So working that extra overtime hour and making $34.20, but paying about 10 bucks in taxes, yes, you did pay more in taxes, but at the same time, yes, you did make $34.20 more take home than if you had just been sitting at your house making $0 an hour. So in order to understand this, you need to know that our tax system functions as a progressive system. It's not a flat rate. Everyone doesn't pay 15% of every dollar they earn. If you hear someone say something along the lines of, I'm in the 22% tax bracket, that doesn't actually mean that they pay 22% tax on everything they make. They actually probably paid a lot less than 22% on most of the money they made. And here's why, because this is where the main confusion comes in, so stick with me. For this video and these examples, I'm gonna use the US income tax rates of 2021 if you were to file as a single person. So a progressive system means the first dollar you made to the $9,950th dollar that you made, you pay 10% tax on that. From the $9,951st dollar to the $40,525th dollar you made, you paid 12% tax. So you didn't pay 12% tax on everything yet. You paid 10%, and then when your income got over $9,951, you paid 12%. And from $40,526 to the $86,375th dollar that you made, you paid 22%. So if your salary, don't miss this guys, if your salary is $86,375, you do not pay 22% on $86,000. You still paid 10% on the first $9,950 you made. Then you went ahead and you paid 12% on $9,900 to about $40,000. The only thing you paid 22% on was the money from $40,526 to $86,375. And it progresses like this the more money you make. From $86,000 to $164, it's 24%. From $164 to $209, it's at 32%. From $209 to $523, it's 35%. And anybody that makes more than $523,601 is going to be taxed at 37% for the income they made over $523,000. If we have someone that makes $600,000, they're not going to be taxed at 37% for the entire $600,000. Compare this to someone who makes $50,000. The $600,000 guy and the $50,000 guy, from $0 to $9,950, they were taxed exactly the same at 10%. The only money that the $600,000 per year guy gets taxed at 37% is anything he made over $523,601. So this is exactly why we have this myth about a buffer zone, because people don't understand that it's progressive, like I was just explaining. So for example, there is no such thing as a buffer zone where if you were to make $86,375 and then you worked an extra 8 hours, boom, all of a sudden you moved your entire income into another tax bracket. And now that changes everything. No longer are you paying 22%, but you just changed your entire income to 24%. And by that reasoning, that extra 8 hours that pushed you over into the next tax bracket screwed you, because it made it all not worth it and it actually made you lose money. But that's not how it works. The only tax you pay more than 22% on is every dollar over $86,375. You're not paying more money in taxes because you worked overtime. You're paying more money in taxes because you're taking home more money. There's no specialty overtime tax like we talked about. So now some of you guys though are gonna say, well, how come when I work so much overtime, my paycheck only goes up $100 and all these taxes come out? So this has less to do with how much you're paying in taxes, but more to do with how much your employer is withholding in taxes. We have to understand withholding. So how many of you know that you actually only pay taxes one time per year, and you have to pay them by the April 15th deadline? You don't pay taxes every single paycheck. Taxes get withheld. So to put it in simpler terms, your employer is basically saying, well, hey, I'm gonna withhold 25% of your income of every single paycheck and put it in a bank account where you can't touch it, and it's specifically designated for that tax deadline on April 15th. And they do this because how many people, if you got everything that you made with no taxes, you would spend it all, and then by the end of the year when the tax bill comes and you owe $25,000, you wouldn't have a single thing in your bank account to pay the $25,000. In order to prevent that, they're basically forcing you to save for your tax bill at the end of the year. So there are a couple rare exceptions of people that don't pay just once a year. Usually you pay quarterly, and this is gonna be common for someone who's self-employed, or if you have a repetitive behavior where you owe at least $1,000 or more in taxes. But generally speaking, everyone's gonna pay taxes once a year. So now that we understand withholding, let's go back to the paycheck where you're not bringing home as much as you thought you would working overtime. So most companies have an automated computer software system that is deciding how much is an appropriate amount to withhold every paycheck. So normally, for example, if you get paid $1,000 a paycheck and you get paid every week, the software is gonna look at the paycheck and go, okay, this person makes $1,000 a week. He's on track to make $52,000 this year, which means he's gonna pay such and such amount of taxes. And we have 52 times to save up for this. So we need to withhold this much money every single paycheck. So then let's say the next week though, you do 27 hours of overtime, and that's in addition to your normal hours, and you're expecting to make $2,000 on your paycheck that week. But what can happen is the software then looks at it and goes, whoa, hold on a second. This guy's making $2,000 a week, which means he's on pace to make $104,000 this year. So we need to withhold the same amount of money as anyone else who is making $104,000 this year. Oh, and by the way, we've been under withholding a certain amount because we thought he was going to make $52,000. So they might end up withholding a lot of money to protect you, is the idea of it, because they can't predict how much overtime you're necessarily going to work week to week. Now, of course, if your employer withholds too much money, when you file that tax return by April 15th, that's when you get money back. That's how people get money back, is because throughout the year, the employer pulled in too much money. So you will get that extra money back. But if it really is bothering you or it's irregular and you can't plan for it, you can redo your W-4 form if you're having issues with getting hammered as far as the amount of taxes they're withholding. And when you redo your W-4 form, you can map out how much you want withheld from each of your paychecks. Just be careful you're not redoing your W-4 form so you're gonna end up owing money at the end of the year. So if you're working overtime and we're just talking about the number side of it, yes, it is worth it because it's going to bring you extra money and it's not going to affect at all. It is not going to affect the money you have already made. There's no special overtime tax. It all gets taxed the same. Yes, you're going to pay more taxes that year, but that's because you're taking home more money that year. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this clears up the misconceptions about overtime and tax brackets and you have a little bit of understanding. Please go ahead, hit the subscribe button. If you learned anything, please hit the like button. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys next week.